All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Village of Westchester's Village Board Meeting. It is February 25th, 2020. It is 7 p.m. We are in the Village Boardroom. Can we all please stand for the Pledge Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Stan, can we have the roll, please?
Trustee Kilcogno.
Present.
Trustee Karatko. Trustee Markey.
Present.
Trustee Morales.
Present.
Trustee Perry.
Present.
Trustee Stecker. President Gattuso.
Present. Okay, under presentations, the financial 2019 audit presentation, we're going to push this off. We just got this. So I think if everybody can digest this and look at it and go through it, it would be probably better if we have that presentation at our next meeting instead of doing it tonight. I think that would work out better for us, if that's okay with
Yeah,
everyone.
no, that'd be great.
Okay.
It's a
All
lot
right,
to
let's move to
digest.
5. Public comment, questions, come on up. Nobody? You sure? Nobody. All right, nobody. Good. All right, let's go to number 6, consent agenda. Under 6A, the approval of the record of bills ending Tuesday, February 25th, 2020, in the amount not to exceed $709,949.86. Under B, the minutes from the board meeting of the village president and board of trustees that was held on Tuesday, February 11th, 2020. And also under C, the minutes from the committee of the whole held on the same evening, Tuesday, February 11th, 2020. We'll need a motion and second for the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by trustee Perry, seconded by trustee Morales. Any other discussion, anything on this? If not, call the roll.
Trustee Kilcogno.
Aye.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Morales.
Aye.
Trustee Perry.
Aye.
President Gattuso.
All right, motion carries. All right, on the active agenda, 7A, a resolution authorizing the execution of the lease agreement between the Village of Westchester and the Forest Preserve District of Cook County for providing improvements to the Westchester Woods Preserve. Ladies and gentlemen, we all talked about this. This is for the fountain area where the gazebo and everything is. It's a lease agreement that'll last for the next 4 or 5 years. It's a $13,000 lease. And tonight, it's just up for our approval. So the motion and second on this.
So moved.
Motion made by trustee Markey. We need a second.
Second.
Seconded by trustee Calcagno. Any other discussion? Not, call the roll.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Morales.
Aye.
Trustee Perry.
Aye.
Trustee Kilcogno.
Aye.
President Gattuso.
All right, motion carries. 7B, an ordinance amending Title III entitled Revenue and Finance of the Westchester Municipal Code in order to preclude the use of home rule powers to increase real property taxes above the limiting rate of non-home rule municipalities provided by the Property Tax Extension Limitation Law. This is for the ballot to put home rule on the ballot for the residents to vote for home rule. So this is what was put together from prior meetings, and this is a motion and second to approve this to be on the ballot.
This is,
No.
Nope.
your correction, this is so that we cannot, go ahead, Paul.
I was going to ask for
So it
the,
is on the ballot already. So this is a resolution that if home rule passes and a future board decided to raise the taxes past the PTEL, the 5% or the CPI, then it would automatically trigger a resolution
For this?
to,
Okay, do you have, I don't have it, so this is one of the
to go ahead
reasons
and do a
why.
referendum, a resolution to put a referendum to go back to non-home rule.
Okay, but the way it's worded on here kind of makes it a little harder for residents to understand that, so.
Well, this isn't the wording that would be, I mean, this is just so that a future board can't come in, that there's some things in place that would make it a little tough for them just to say, hey,
Okay, wait, I think we're going a little too far. Let's get a motion in second first, and then we can go further on this. Motion?
this is just to go to discussion.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I'll move.
Second.
Okay, motion by trustee Perry, seconded by trustee Calcagno. Let's continue then. Go ahead, Ames, continue.
So if a future board comes in and says, we don't want to follow the 5% or the CPI, it would automatically trigger this going back on the ballot to go
Reverse.
back to non-home rule. So they couldn't just simply say, hey, we're not going to abide by that ordinance that was passed, back when we were sitting now.
Jim, could you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, I'd like to hear that from the attorney.
There are a number of safeguards that are built into the ordinance so that, as has been noted, that, in the event there's some discussion about exceeding the PTEL limitations, then it would be left to the voters, after a series of items that are left forth and set forth in the ordinance, to put a resolution on a ballot for the voters to vote based on a referendum to repeal home rule authority, if that answers your question.
Sure.
So just to repeal the home rule authority, period, all the way around, and go back to a non-home rule.
That's correct.
community.
And if they didn't repeal it, then that new board can
Then raise taxes,
exercise their right to.
raise the
Okay.
taxes. That's the only thing that I was a little bit nervous about.
Well, then it's up to the voters.
Right, it's up to the residents.
But this referendum does explain full transparency of
This
this,
ordinance, yes.
which is what the residents would need to be educated and come to a proper vote, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
This is like a poison pill. If a future board goes ahead and violates what this board is stating that they want to do, which is not use this to raise property taxes, it would allow a resolution to be brought forth automatically to put a referendum on the next available ballot.
Okay, thank you.
So, I guess it would be a one-time shot in the arm, where the property taxes could go up, but then the possibility would be that the referendum would take away the home rule powers and all that goes along with the home rule powers, which is much more than just raising property taxes.
Sorry, I'm just going over it, because it didn't come through in my packet.
Oh, you didn't get the copy of it?
No. Any other thoughts? Go ahead, you guys can continue discussing it. Well,
No, I mean, that's
I'm
what I
fine.
thought.
Yeah,
we
I'm
were-
pretty
That's what I
satisfied
thought
with
we
it.
were doing, just putting some kind of safeguard in that the residents would still have a choice if property taxes, were increased, beyond their limitations.
Okay, my question is that, okay, if we're not gonna go above property taxes the way it is and the way we're stating right now, then we're still in the same situation we are as today, is how are we gonna increase revenues to do the streets and alleys and things that we need done? That's my whole problem, is that, okay, can we add another 0.5% or percent of sales tax in, that we can do? Council, am I correct in that?
Well, yeah, you still have the general home rule authority. I think what this ordinance serves to do is relative to property taxes. But there's a whole host of other home rule authorities that you would have.
Can you elaborate on a couple of them, so it can maybe ease my mind of figuring out, because I wanna fix all the streets and alleys in town, but how can we achieve that goal?
Could we maybe ask our village manager?
Sure.
Is that okay? Because we've already had these discussions in the past. And maybe you could summarize these discussions, Paul?
Well, yeah, I'd also like to hear it from our attorney as well, but, and I don't know if this is even relevant to this ordinance. We're just voting on this ordinance as a poison pill to repeal it. But there's so many other powers that come along with home rule, other revenues that we could raise. For example, the gaming, we charge $25 per game in each venue. So there's 6 of them, so that's, what, a total of $150. If someone had 6, we could raise that to $1,000, let's say. So those are small revenues. that we could raise, but all of them end up adding up. And then we just have the autonomy to basically govern ourselves rather than having Springfield dictate to us how we're gonna manage our village. And I think the idea that the board has is that we are more knowledgeable about our municipality than Springfield is.
Just to be clear, home rule's already going on the ballot.
Yes, it's
Right.
on
This
the
is
ballot
just
for
the
March
safeguard we're
17th.
talking
Right.
about.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right, so we're not, I mean.
So get back
would
on
assume that
topic,
we want
basically.
to put a safeguard in. Home rule's
Right.
not even a discussion anymore. It's, you know, so
That's gonna be up to the voters, so this could be a moot ordinance if it's
Correct.
not.
right,
voted.
if it doesn't pass,
Exactly.
So, but we're always looking at that referendum would pass. So I'm just trying to get some clarification of, give me an example of what we can raise other than sales tax.
Well, you could just
Besides
sales,
the gaming, because we only have 3 or 4 gaming places, so
Cigarette-
a small-
Liquor,
cigarette, alcohol,
cigarettes,
gas
I mean-
tax.
I want to hear that. I mean,
you can do all that. The other thing you can do is, right now as a
Fees and
non-home,
fines.
I'm sorry?
Fees and fines.
You're right. And as a non-home rule municipality, for example, you can only license businesses that the legislature authorizes you to license. A home rule municipality, you can license all businesses. There's just, it gives you a whole host of powers that you currently don't have.
Then the other thing that we just saw that passed the House is that they'll be taking away our red light cameras for all non-home rule municipalities. That's a $300,000 hole in our budget, if that ends up going through, all the way through. And that's gonna hurt us. Also, the bonding power. We would not have to go to referendum to issue a bond if we had an emergency that we needed. One of these bridges that goes out, it's gonna cost over $1 million to fix. We could issue a bond to handle that without having to go to referendum.
This may be more directed toward you, Paul, but this, what we were discussing for this evening, was more so to convey transparency for the residents. Like, this seems like we're getting off in a different direction, more so for
Yes.
one way or another, where,
Right.
in my opinion, I think this is just to convey that this is for the residents to determine and know that if there was somebody to go, per se, rogue, that there are stopgaps to prevent anything from, you know, going in a direction that would be, you know, very impactful negatively on the village.
Correct. That is all this ordinance is doing, and it's a safeguard that a lot of municipalities don't even put in. This is something, a good faith gesture that this board wants to put in to try and eliminate some of the fear that is out there that a lot of residents hear, that it's just to raise your taxes. That's
Right,
the only
right.
thing. And specifically property taxes.
Correct.
Are we good
Any more?
for a vote?
yeah, you ready? Call a vote.
Trustee Morales.
Aye.
Trustee Perry.
Aye.
Trustee Kilcogno.
aye.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
President Gattuso.
Well, these stopgaps help me a little bit more, because before I was a no. But as long as I think these will help, okay, then I'll go with it too. Aye. All right, let's go on to the manager's report. Paul?
Okay. We are going to be relocating the building department to the back area. I know you guys have talked about it for a year and a half now, so we're gonna make that happen. And hopefully by March 1st, we'll have the building department in the back. We have much easier access to their files. Should be easier for contractors to get in and out, not have to wait for 10 people to pay their water bills or other issues. So hopefully we can get them in and out a lot easier, and they'll have better access to some of the other building files. So,
Paul, on that, can I ask a question
Sure.
on this? Moving back there, I think, is a great idea. Like I said, contractors are easier to take care of things, and it doesn't hold up the line for other people paying a water bill or a ticket or whatever else they're doing up there. Is there a possibility that we can open it earlier?
I was gonna suggest that. Right now, we're gonna leave 8:30 to 5. My thought would be to have similar to Public Works hours, 7 to 3:30, especially in the summer, just for the contractors who obviously want to get in here earlier. I know there's been some talk about 3:30 being a little too early, but, you know, I think having the opportunity to come in at 7, I think a lot of the contractors would like it.
Well, even at 3:30, even if you said, okay, 7 to 5 during the summer hours, okay? And you actually kind of part-time the last few hours out a little bit, just to collect, you know, bring in stuff, or turn in an application for a permit and stuff. Limited sources like that would be fine.
Sure,
You know?
and the other thing is that it does give them a little autonomy where they could be open 7 to 3:30, but Village Hall would still be open till 5. If a contractor still had an issue and wanted to come in after 3:30, we'd still be open. We wouldn't be able to give them 100% of the answers, but we'd still be able to help them out as best we can, take in their permit application, money, et cetera. So that was definitely in the plans. Just want to take one step at a time, though.
Yeah, I think that's a good plus if we look at that for our future plans to go that way. I think it would help us out, help the residents out, help everyone else out, so. Okay, everybody okay? Anything else, Paul?
What else? So back to the home rule, there will be a town hall meeting March 1st here in our boardroom at 1:30 to discuss home rule. The mayor of Batavia, Jeffrey Shelkey, I believe his name is. He's one of the longest-standing mayors in Illinois. Has agreed to come and talk with us and give his opinions and his knowledge and background of being a home rule municipality. So that'll be here at 1:30 on Sunday. Bond rating, we've been finalizing, now that we've finalized the audit, S&P is gonna give us our bond rating to issue our MFT bonds. We're talking about looking at pricing March 10th, so we should have a bond rating hopefully by tomorrow, an official one, so you'll all get a copy of that. And that's all I have for right now. Melissa will give you guys an update on the TIF progress momentarily.
Okay.
Thank you.
And our attorney tonight has nothing much to do. All right, board members, what do we got?
I have nothing new.
Welcome, Rob.
Thanks. You know, I just have a couple acknowledgements. I don't know if this is pertinent, but I just like to bring it out there. So kudos to our Public Works Department from February 17th to the 21st. We had 4 water main breaks, and they were still able to continue on with their cold patching, the streets, and tree removal. So thank you to them. Also to our police chief and his team. There were numerous calls from residents that were complimenting that they've seen increased traffic enforcement. So thank you to you and your team. And that's all I have.
Perfect. Trace?
I attended last Saturday, the census meeting that was here, very informative. I had suggested that maybe if we could have him come and trustee from Broadview, come and speak with us about that. I think that would be great because it's a very important thing that needs to be done and shed some light on exactly how they do it. And I know there's some people that are scared of taking it, but there's nothing to be scared of about taking it. Everybody needs to be counted, and that's more money that we can get from the state for everybody that is counted. So I was looking into doing that, but it was very informative and very well.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say to piggyback on that, yeah, there was a lot of information that was provided. Just like to get this out there, I think the Village of Westchester over the last 10 years, they estimate about a $48 million possible loss in revenue. It's a little over $1,500 per person not counted per year. They estimate that we were counted at about 71%,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
And a resident asked, well, how do you get that number if you don't know who to count? They get that off of records for students who are enrolled in schools, there's a lot of different ways they get that, so people are putting addresses down that they live in Westchester, but they're not being counted. The township, I believe, over the last 10 years is upwards of $700 million. There was a lot of money out there left on the table. They explained that information that's collected by the census cannot be shared with anybody. They cannot share that with anybody. So for whatever reason that people are either think it's not important, why should I, what's it doing for me, or who they gonna give this information to, that's not the case. It's really beneficial to us to make sure that we get the word out there. Really can't stress enough. That's a lot of money left on, left sitting out there that we could have had.
And totally agree on that, Ange, and I think in our last census, we were undercounted also. And I think that really hurts us, because we get money from all over, more from motor fuel tax, more from everywhere. And I think what we should do is a push as a village, if we can invest in something and getting some kind of flyer mailed out to each and every household in town that says that this is so important and why it's so important, and put it out. I mean, meetings are great and everything else. Some don't attend, some don't even know that we're doing them. Some people are so scared of it that they think they're gonna get deported if they say this kind of stuff or do this kind of stuff. So I think putting it out on our web is one thing, good, but I also think if we did mail something from the house, saying, from our house here in the village of Westchester to our residents' homes, expressing how important it is for us to get this done.
I'm
Right.
sure the trustee Booker would be able to get you that information. I asked if you
Very-
could put a table.
Nathan's good.
Yeah, he's awesome. If we could put a table up front with all of the information on it, and it's in Spanish and in English, so that it's available there, and I'm sure he would be more than happy to do that. And he also said, you are able, I believe I forget the date, I didn't have it written down, I'm sorry. If you can do it online and on the phone, if you do it then you don't get the door knockers. So do it once, you'll be done. The library will also have computers available where you can go in there and,
I was at the library last night and talked to them about it, and they said they'd be willing to help out too.
yeah,
So I think that's a good plus. I think maybe even us here with some laptops and tablets that we have can have seminars here to have them come in and do it with us here. It'd be a good thing for us, a good PR thing for us too. But I also think a mail out to the home to even invite them to certain things that we have at date scheduled would be good too. So just, the information has to get there, and we have to get them here. How do we get them here? How do we get them to fill it out? That's the answers that we have.
Another piece of that is, we could potentially lose 2 congressional seats.
Yeah.
Right now, we're on track for that. So I think we're down to 17.
17.
And originally, if they go back into the 60s or so, we were at 27,
Yeah,
like something like that.
27 to 27, 28.
28, something like
Yeah.
that. So those congressional seats you may not think are important, but those who are vote for Illinois, they'll vote for us. They represent us. I think state representative
Welch,
seats would go down as well.
yes.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that impacts us by not being.
In order to be represented, you have to be counted, and that's what gives us the representation down in Springfield too.
Yeah.
So it's very important. I think maybe we can brainstorm to get something out there as quickly as possible to make sure that this gets going.
Is that something we should put in our newspaper? Our monthly newspaper?
100%.
I mean, in any outfit we
100%.
have, I would suggest that, I mean, it's our duty, I think, to,
Yes.
bring those revenues to the, to the village.
And we're leaving money on the table that we could be spending on doing anything
Our
else.
schools are losing money. That's revenue that our schools lose as well, so.
Yeah, maybe in the water bills as well.
Water bill's the best one. It goes to every place in town, every house in town. That's
Yep.
the best one. It's easy.
I think,
I-
I think there's a link that will link you up to a bunch of different websites or
Oh, yeah. It's,
give people information.
Okay,
bring
we'll
it all
coordinate
here
that.
with me. I have it all.
Yeah,
at
Mr.
home.
Booker's really good at
He's
it.
awesome.
He knows what he's doing on that. It's
I'd like
really
to have
good.
him come.
Yeah,
to
Nathaniel's
any
great
of
on
his-
that.
yeah.
But Stan?
Yeah, this afternoon, I attended the Chamber luncheon at Q's Restaurant, co-sponsored with our Economic Development Committee. And it was, the topic was marketing. It was very well-attended. Talking to Laura Ball, so she typically get 15 people. This one, we had like 30, 35 people. and representing various businesses in town, and it was time well spent.
Anyone else? Melissa, what do you got?
I just wanted to give everybody a little update on the TIF district, or, in the planning process here. So one thing that we have coming up on March 2nd is we're going to have a public hearing for an amendment to the comp plan. Our future land use map has to be, it has to mirror the redevelopment goals that are identified in those TIF district plans. So we have to modify our, the future land use map. So Plan Commission is gonna have a public hearing on the 2nd. On March 10th, you guys have your public hearing regarding those two districts. That'll be part of your regular board meeting. All the notifications have gone out to both people within 750 feet of the districts, and also, now we've also sent out the notices to the property owners that are within those districts. So we're starting to get calls and return mail and things like that. So if you start getting questions about that, that's why you're getting that. Also, in conjunction with all that, I put together a draft RFP. I left copies at your places if you want to take a look at it, to basically look at doing planning and marketing services for both of the districts. So what we want to do is we're looking for not just planning services, but also like an economic market analysis to make sure that whatever we envision for this corridor and also for the St. Joseph site, is realistic. It has realistic goals, and it's something that's attainable. We can come up with grand ideas for what we want to do, but if there's no market for it, then does it really make sense? So we want to make sure that we're taking a really comprehensive market-based approach to redevelopment opportunities here, looking for strategies for repositioning areas in the corridor for retail or other commercial opportunities, looking for projects that are going to create synergy or additional energy and investment in the districts. Also looking for something that's going to be, like I said, a catalyst for other development in the area. Looking for branding and marketing as well as part of that plan, and then just making sure that it's something that is sort of, that it's a practical document that can act as a reference for us. So it's not just a plan that sits on the shelf and nobody looks at it again after we've done it, something that can give us some really viable strategies. And also breaking down the action plan into short-term and long-term goals, and how to finance those things that are in that plan and things like that. So it's just a draft right now. It hasn't been released, but it is something that you guys can take a look at. And if you have any feedback, I'm happy to take that feedback. Also, I think there were some questions about how the incentive requests will be handled when they come in. So right now, we don't have anything put together. In the past, it's been a pretty informal process. But as we go through this process, we're going to draft an incentive policy for the village, for the board to look at, and application forms, and kind of outline that process more formally and kind of get your feedback to see what you like or don't like, or how you want us to move forward with that. So we'll probably bring that back forward to you guys after the adoption of the district. That's all that I have.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Melissa. All right, anyone else? No? All right, 9, we talked about everything. Executive session. I believe we have one tonight, Paul? Right? Do we have an executive? All right, so number 12, we will look to retire into executive session for 5 LX 120/2C5 for the purchase or lease of real property for the use of public body, including meetings held for purpose of discussing whether the particular parcel should be acquired. So we need a motion and second to retire into executive session after the committee of the whole, and to come back with no further action. Okay?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by trustee Markey, seconded by trustee Morales. Roll call?
Trustee Perry,
Aye.
trustee Calcagno,
Aye.
trustee Markey,
Aye.
trustee Morales,
Aye.
President Gattuso.
Motion carries. Okay, that means we are adjourned. We'll go right into the committee of the whole. I'd like to call the committee of the whole meeting together. It is February 25th, 2020. It is 7:30 PM. We are in the village boardroom. Stan, can you call the roll?
Trustee Calcagno.
Present.
Trustee Karatko. Trustee Markey.
Present.
Trustee Morales.
Present.
Trustee Perry.
Present.
Trustee Stecker. President Gattuso.
Present. All right. Under new business, we have red light camera discussion. Angela, I believe you were asked to put this on here?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Actually, just a few questions. Going back, I believe we've had red light cameras now 7 or 8 years. I believe, was there an agreement with them? Well, this is the second vendor we're using, I believe. But is there some agreement with them, you know, a term that we go?
We just signed a new contract not too long ago with them to go another 2 years, Paul, was it 1 year?
I want to say it was 1 year, I think that was in December.
Yeah, we just signed one more to extend 1 more year.
A couple of questions kind of just popped up last board meeting. When the red light cameras were first introduced, I know there were certain criteria that had to be met,
Right.
right? You know,
Yes.
there's so many accidents that happen at that intersection.
A study had to be
violations
done,
and
the
stuff
state
like
had
that,
to
right.
approve, I mean, the county had to approve.
You know, with all the controversy surrounding red light cameras, I couldn't tell you how many people call me about that, ask me about red light cameras, and, you know, is it just a money-making thing that we do here, you know, just to draw in revenue, or, you know, it originally was done for safety, and I just want to make sure that that's still the intent and still the purpose of it, you know, are we still continuing to see accidents there? Did it help that, you know, stuff like that, so.
Well, I think maybe to ease your mind, we can ask, you know, our chief to just kind of roll back and go back according to a few years and see how many accidents were
'Cause
happening on those
Th-
corners.
There's quite a few conversations where red light cameras come up, and it almost sounds like it's a revenue thing for us that, you know, and I just want to make sure that we're clear on why we have red light cameras and convey that to the community, that it's not just a revenue piece. If there is a safety, you know, concern that's still out there, and that's why we're using it, you know, and it's just, again, a lot of controversy surrounding red light camera stuff right now. And
But
they
it-
don't want to be, you know,
And if that pleases you and the rest of the board, we can have Chief Babbitt, he could go through it and see if the accidents have gone down in the areas that we have red light cameras in that particular intersection, making right-hand turns and what it is. And come back to you with that information to show that, yes, it is according to what the spirit of the law that we brought it in for, okay? Is that okay with the board?
Absolutely, yeah, I would love
For
to have
sure.
that
All right,
information.
perfect. Is that okay with you, Ange?
yep,
All right, good. Anything else on it?
nope.
All right, RPZ valves, RPC ordinance. Scott's not here tonight. His wife had a gallbladder attack, and he's at the hospital with her. So I would like to defer this till he was here, so he can make his presentation on this RPC thing. That's okay with the board?
Yeah, sure, unless you want to make the presentation.
I know what an RPZ valve is and looks like, and
I know
put
what
it
it
in
looks
and
like,
everything
right.
else, but I really don't want to make that
It's
presentation.
expensive to install. right?
Yes, they are. Okay, but if the board's okay with that, we'll wait for that one for the next meeting. Before we go to budget workshop, Paul would like to do the water ordinance discussion before that one. Okay.
Yes, so in our ordinance right now, when a resident does not pay their water bill, we send out the red notice, we have turn-off fees, we have disconnect fees and reconnect fees. Currently, they're at $75 to turn it off, $75 to turn it on. And talking and going through the budget and realizing that this was probably done years and years ago, it probably costs us $75 an hour for a guy to go out and turn these on and off. So we wanted to raise that to $150 to turn them on and off in the section of the ordinance. And the other thing we're looking at doing is a lot of these people are repeat offenders, unfortunately. So we wanted to look at if someone has been issued 2 shut-off notices and had their water shut off twice in a year, that we're gonna ask for a security deposit. Just, a lot of these times, people end up moving out, leaving, we never collect the money. So we're gonna ask for a security deposit of $250. So we want to change that in the ordinance as well.
Wait, could you repeat that? Could you, one more time, Paul?
So, we're not quote-unquote determining creditworthiness, we're not running credit checks, but if a resident has had 2 shut-offs in a year, we're gonna require them to, give a $250 security deposit to obtain water from the village.
Okay, but if they're not able to come up with the $250, they don't get their water turned on even if their bill is current?
Well, that's the thing, in most cases, they won't be current, they'll have to come up with an extra $250.
But the resident, here's my issue, I get it, but the resident's already being strapped, and now, in order for them to get water, we're gonna strap them for another $250.
Well, in most of these cases, that would be almost about a year that they didn't pay their water. Because we bill every other month, then we wait another 30 days by the time they get the bill to determine that they're late. Then we wait another 30 days to issue the shut-off. You're talking almost 4 months before, and then we give them another 20 days to pay the bill. So you're talking almost 4.5 months before they even pay one bill.
Is this the owner of the property we're talking about?
Yes,
Can we lien the house instead of making them pay a?
we can lien the houses, but I know that those have been thrown out of court.
I was gonna say, I don't think
We
legally
have
you
a
can
provision to
lien
lien them.
the property.
Here's the problem with leaning. We're the last ones to get anything.
Yeah,
Right.
So 90% of the time, we don't get it. And Rob's more in banking than I am, but that's what I've known about it.
I know
We're-
other municipalities that just require a security deposit as soon as you walk in the door and you're a new resident there. So I don't think it's unreasonable. I'm just trying to collect the money that's owed us. People do use the water.
I know, I get it,
How
I do.
many months that they don't pay that till we shut off? You said 4.5?
Well,
Well, it'd be 4 months, because you're 2-month cycles. So if you miss 2 of the first billing cycle, which is 2 months, then the second billing cycle comes out after that. So if you're not paid there, it could possibly be 1 month, or
I mean, I just
4
hate, like
months.
Frank said, I hate for people to be strapped. I don't know if there's some way that we can reach out and see if they can do,
well, we offer them a lot of things. We offer
Okay.
them hardship hearings, so they can come in and say, hey, you know, I really can't afford to do this right now, is there any way? But they have to communicate, they just blatantly ignore us.
Okay.
Those are the people that we're talking about.
Paul, off the top of your head, in 1 year, how many people are we?
We just handed out 286 shut-off notices last month.
Wow.
It becomes a problem because of that issue, because most people wait for the last second and then they pay the bill. You know, they do it that way. So we're like a lending company that makes no interest, you know?
Well, and that's the other thing about billing every other month. You know, we have to pay our garbage and our water every month. So we're fronting a month of bills already. And now we're going into 2 months, plus another 30 days, plus another 20 days for them to pay. You know, you're talking 4, 5, 6 months by the time we collect our money. And you know, it's interest-free loans to them,
Right.
unless we change our policy again to start billing monthly. That's a
We
whole
did
nother
monthly,
issue.
and monthly was very hard up on, you know,
Yeah,
to get it done. It was very hard to
They're
get it
very
done.
busy.
It was. You know, so, I mean, that's one of the reasons why the board decided to go bi-monthly. We used to do quarterly, so quarterly would even be further out, you know? So I think meeting halfway with bi-monthly would work. Why don't we kind of draw it up, you know, draw up something that you want to do on paper and, you know, kind of give us a couple options on paper so we can go through it, put it in our heads before we come back here again, instead of trying to hash it out right here, you know?
Well,
Give us your opinions on certain ways you'd like to move, and let us look, and then we can come back and say, okay, yeah, we like that, we don't like this, you know? I prefer, you know, more discretionary on the village end, you know, because if there's repeat offenders, you could be a lot tougher on them, on the repeat offenders. I'd like to go that route on it, because the repeat offenders should pay more, because they're repeat offenders. It's not fair to the person who pays his bill every time that, you know, they get 4 months to pay it, and I only
I
get 2.
think that's what we're doing at this point. We're not hitting the guy who who was one time he got a shut-off notice and actually had it shut off. We're hitting the guy that 2 times in a year, they've had it physically shut off. When are they gonna learn, I guess?
Yeah.
And everyone else is paying their bills.
Maybe put together a guideline of what you're looking at.
That's what I was
From
just
there.
trying to
Just
say.
put a guideline.
Stipulations that
Go
would
for
have
it.
to happen before the shut-off would occur.
Because if we're changing the ordinance, we want it to be in that certain order of what you're looking for it to do. So let's just get it in that route. And, you and I talked about this prior to the meeting. I would rather have the village manager have the discretion of saying, we can do this and do that on a case-by-case basis and go that route on the repeat offenders and everything else. But in talking to the attorney, and he says it's better to put it in the ordinance so it's clear-cut, done and done. So I agree, I think maybe put together a schedule of how you want to do it and what you want to do, and get it to us, and I think you'll get 100% acceptance.
Oh, you're talking about people who actually
Right.
get it shut off twice,
Right.
not,
Yes, not just gotten the notice.
not just gotten the notice.
Physically had it shut off and ended up having to pay the fees. And so we gotta send the guy out twice, and it's usually twice in one day, because all of a sudden they find the money and run there and pay it, because they need their water.
I'm just wondering, that many people, the amount of money that we're fronting
Yes.
is,
Well, the fine should be higher, Hinch. $75 is nothing. I think the fine should be higher.
Yeah.
That I totally agree on.
but we're fronting thousands of dollars
Oh, hundreds of
monthly.
thousands,
Hundreds of thousands monthly. The interest rate on that alone.
Yeah, it's probably 200,000 at
We're,
least,
yeah,
250 to 300,000 a month, between our garbage bill and our water bill, right?
But our garbage bills are passed through anyway, right? So it's never been a money
Right,
maker. It's
well,
been a
yeah,
pass
but
through.
yeah, but
Still,
we're
we pay
putting the
every
money
month.
out.
Yeah, we're fronting the money.
So, and we could change it to where we bill every month and just go in cycles or zones. Especially businesses, I think they would love to have a monthly bill
Well,
instead of a
I was in favor of doing the residents bi-monthly and just leaving the business monthly, because it's easier for the business to write it monthly.
I think it's easier for residents to write it monthly as well.
It's up to you.
It's a smaller bill.
It's up to you.
That's what I.
I mean, it's up
All
to
right,
the
I'll
board.
put some of that
Put something
together.
together, get it to us, and let's go from there, because I think it might be easier for everybody to kind of get their questions together, whether you trying to do it freehand tonight, okay? All right, you want to go into the budget, Paul, or you want to?
Sure.
What do you want to do?
Yeah, we could discuss a little bit about the budget. So Stefan and I have gone through the general fund budget. We have submitted that to you for your first look. First page is a summary of FY '18 actual, '19 actual, our '20 budget, our '20 projected, and our request for '21. This format will be the same throughout, and right now, the way we have the general fund budgeted, we are budgeting a surplus. And we're projecting a surplus for fiscal year end '20. Page 4 starts out with all of the revenue. Continuing on till page 7. And then on page 8, you'll see a overall summary of revenue and expenditures by department. Again, showing the surplus. I didn't know at this point if everyone wanted to go through each department line by line, or if you want to hold off, and at the next cow, you'll have all of the funds and go through the budget at that point.
I think at the next cow, because then we'll have a
Full board.
whole board too, yeah.
Okay, so I'll let you guys digest this, but please feel free during the week or two, call me, email me with questions related to the budget, and that'll give us more time to answer them
Okay.
more accurately.
Any other questions about it? And I know, Paul, but maybe for our next board meeting, I'm sorry, I was asking the attorney a question. Maybe, guys, if you agree with this, they'll get out the rest of this by tomorrow, the next day to us, and they can get the other funds out, the water, this, that, and everything else that we have. And maybe on our next board agenda, on the committee of the whole, we'll just put one item on it would be the budget, and just dedicate that whole committee of the whole for the budget that night.
Yep.
And I think that would be a lot easier, because we could have both sides and look at everything, expenditures, revenues, everything at one time, and say, you know, what's good, bad, or indifferent about it. I think that might be easier for us to go through, and also more productive at that time to go through. So, if that's the pleasure of the board, I think that would be okay. It's up-
Yeah,
it's up
you've
to
got,
you.
you've got half your budget right here. so-
Right, and the other half comes in, and we can
The
put them
biggest
all
portion.
together and say yay, nay, and if tomorrow, if you can guys get some of the rest of that budget out for us, so we have at least 2 weeks to kind of thumb through it, ask questions, email you questions, so it's not a, you know, a night of question and answers for, you know, all night long. So at least we have it, and we can just hit the major points of what we want to look at, and, you know, are we in deficit, or are we in surplus, are we in, you know, where are we? And also, we can help working on the capital projects, and what we want to do is try to move forward to say, this is our capital plan for this year.
Right.
So we can understand where we're at, and what we want to do, and what we want to buy.
Yeah,
So
and I
our
think it's
goals are
gonna
that.
work out well having the auditor here is, at that time too. So we can go over FYE 19's numbers and kind of give us a direction
Yeah.
of what happened then and where we're at now.
Paul,
Yes, sir.
I don't want to get into too much discussion about it tonight, but I know, you know, the last audits we had, there were some things that were backlogged from years that they, you know, they were finding, all that's kind of been cleared up now.
It's not 100% cleared up, but we are moving in the right direction to clear it up.
Yeah, grab that manager's letter out of that audit
Yeah.
report. Read that, because that gives you a synopsis of everything that was past and present, so.
Right,
Grab that.
I'm just wondering where we're at with it. I know, I've read it, I just want to make sure that, you know, as we're going forward, looking at a new budget, you know, are there still expenditures out there that we may incur? We just
No.
don't, you know, haven't figured in yet, or are they all?
Yeah, no, we've tightened that up. I think, if I'm correct, most of the points, the audit points have fallen off of the management letter that were prior. So-
Closing months, closing years, closing
Yeah.
things, all that's fallen off. Fund transfers back and forth, those have fallen off. A lot of that stuff, it was mentioned, so, again, I think some of those have fallen off at the right
If there's
point.
any items that are just kind of lingering too, can kind
Yep.
of bring those forward too, so we have an idea, you know.
Any other questions about it? Thank you. All right, old business, we have none. Information, the information is, do your census. Make sure you do it. Fill them out, send them in. All right, public participation, anybody else would like to come up and speak tonight? I like that. Maybe I was worried, we didn't have anybody, now I'm glad you are. Come on up.
Hello, I have a question about your ordinance y'all just passed,
Which ordinance?
for the home rule.
Go ahead.
The poison pill, what you all call it. On December 17th, didn't Mr. Cole from the IML say that you couldn't pass any ordinance to govern home rule until you were given home rule? I think Mr. Trustee Perry brought up that question of bringing up an ordinance, and he said, anything that you pass cannot be legal once you guys get home rule, that you guys don't have to obey it. So how can you pass a home rule ordinance when you can't govern home rule until you are home rule?
I think that I don't have the ordinance in front of me.
Hang on. Yeah, let me
But-
get that for you right here.
Thank you, sir.
And the IML did put something out to that. I remember reading something in that state. You're right about
December
that.
17th,
Yeah.
Mr. Cole was here and talked about it.
The ordinance itself, in the preamble, in the fourth whereas clause, talks about the levy relative to taxes in the event the home rule referendum is approved on March 17th.
But how can you say
It-
you're gonna do this, because under what Mr. Cole said, anything that you guys, any ordinance you pass before home rule is not valid, and the board does not have to stand to it, because we are not home rule, so they can't govern ordinances for home rule until they're given home rule.
And that's why this is conditioned upon that referendum
But you're
passing.
still governing home rule before they get it,
No,
so.
no, I don't,
They just passed an ordinance for it,
No, if you read the ordinance, it's contingent on it passing.
but you're still governing before you even get home rule. You're already putting provisions in and governing on home rule. So according to what Mr. Cole said, none of that would be valid.
No, that's simply not the case.
So he put out wrong information?
I'm not saying anybody put out wrong information, sir. I'm just saying that this ordinance is premised upon the presumption
Oh, I understand that. If they get
of that
home rule.
referendum passing. If it doesn't pass, then the ordinance, we're back to where we always were.
But they have to get home rule before they can ask to put in any ordinances. So they're
Well,
asking to do it now, and they're saying, oh, we'll give it, but if they get home rule, they don't have to enact that. From what Mr. Cole said, anything they pass or say that they'll give you, as soon as they get home rule, they don't have to abide by it.
Well, the village needs to abide by its own ordinances. And if the village passes, and the village did pass this ordinance,
But it's not legal until you have home rule.
it doesn't, it's not premised on the village being a home rule municipality. It's premised
Maybe I'm a little
upon,
confused, but how can you govern on something when you're not allowed to govern on it until you get it?
we're not governing on it.
Well, you're
We're
making
not, this village,
rules
this,
that you're gonna do something before you get it, when according to the IML, you can't.
this ordinance does not provide the village with home rule authority,
No, it
which
doesn't.
is, I think, the premise of what your argument is.
Yeah, they can't make this ordinance until they get home rule. They're promising it, but they don't have to abide by it if we give them home rule, because it was passed before they had the right for home rule, according to the IML.
Well,
Paul, can you
we're
reach
just, we're
out?
going back and forth and repeating
Well,
ourselves, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
And
interrupt.
here's one other point that I'd like to make, that if in fact that was the case, I know this board, if home rule came to be, I know this board would certainly go back, and as soon as home rule was put in place, pass the same ordinance.
But that's
Yeah,
giving
but-
them a lot of trust when,
Yeah.
you know,
It's
No,
like,
can you-
but
can
you're,
you- can you
he's saying,
get some
you're saying,
clarification?
I'm sorry, what's your name? Because you
my name's
didn't,
Brian.
Brian. Brian's saying we're putting the cart before the horse. That's what you're technically
Yeah.
saying, okay?
That it's not valid, you guys don't have to abide by it if we give you guys home rule, according to the IML.
Paul, can you reach out and get some clarification on that?
It's in an email that came out. You know what, actually, I
no,
could
just-
go back and try to.
Sure,
read
yeah,
that,
absolutely,
too.
I just,
You know, just to
I mean, I
see,
trust our attorney and
right, but to clarify what he said, his
Sure,
statement that
absolutely.
evening, and, you know, if that's the case, because I would hate to mislead anybody into thinking that an ordinance was passed and it wasn't, you know, and I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but
Now,
I get your.
But you also have, this, and I'm not to interrupt, I'm sorry, but you also have the opportunity up here. This is what, it's basically like a promise letter that we wouldn't do this. And if home rule does pass, it's gonna be right now while all of us are sitting up here. And tomorrow, if home rule passed, this could be enacted the same way. And it also goes back to saying that, guess what? You know, if there's gonna be any change, you gotta go back to the residents and ask that they're gonna change that again. It's giving us, it's telling us that we have to check ourselves and go back to you again to ask you for something if we change it. That's what I think,
Well, I
even I was like you in the
understand.
beginning of this. I
It's
didn't
a
like
safe
it for
check for
that
the
reason.
residents to
It's-
know that we
it's
are
not-
not
you
trying
can't
just to raise
govern.
taxes.
Until you get home rule, so how
We're-
can you put ordinance for home rule before you're even given that privilege?
I'm not an attorney.
So
I
that
was
wouldn't
like you
be-
on that, and I
That's
wasn't right.
why I'm asking.
so just,
How about we get the information and we'll come back and let you know. Brian, if you give us your name and number and everything, I'll personally call you on that one myself on that.
Well, I'm here every meeting, so.
All right,
just one thing, Brian, I just want to say, so, I'm not an attorney, so I don't want to comment on that part, but as, to your point of, let's say the home rule did pass, and then, to your point of what you said, well, the board could technically rescind that scenario.
You wouldn't be rescinding
No, no.
what he's saying, it's no good.
Right, what I'm saying is, where I'm going is, this being a public forum, and if home rule did pass, and this board went down that path that you're stating, we all live in this community, we would be basically making a mockery of why we're here and what our goals are. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm strictly speaking, to your point.
I, as a resident, would not want to take anybody's word for it.
I'm not looking to
Right.
take anybody's word, but I mean, if you just think, in real terms here, like I said, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not gonna try to go on that, but just speaking from, from me to you, that's all I'm
I
stating.
understand about
So,
you going on your faith, that will give you the faith that you'll answer for what you said, but I just wanna know, how can you pass it when Mr. Cole put out the information that
right, and that's what I,
Mr. Barry asked that whole thing, can I do this ordinance to appease the village? And he said, no, you're not allowed to govern on anything or make any ordinance, because none of those ordinances are valid until you get home rule. So then you would have to put it on.
right, no, I
people
understand
after
completely
you
what
get
you,
home rule,
I
and they
understand
have to,
completely what you're saying. So,
Say yes, no, and then you just big loop to get it removed.
You know, and tonight, we are basically going on our attorney's advice and everything else, so we need to follow that.
All right.
So let's go that route, Brian, and I'll pull that article. If you can give the village manager your phone number or anything, or if you want to wait till next meeting, I'll talk to you next meeting, okay? It's up to you, okay?
Thank you.
Anyone else?
So regarding that ordinance,
We
it
haven't
only
stated
protects up to P-TEL?
I'm
I mean,
sorry.
above P-TEL?
Wait, can we get your name too? 'Cause
Kevin
I-
Canfield.
Was it?
Kevin Canfield.
Okay.
So
Alright.
that ordinance protects the taxpayer from you going above P-TEL.
Above the tax cap that's here right now.
But if CPI is 1.5, that does not protect you to go 4.35.
Yes,
It does?
yes.
Let's
That's what we're
refer
going by
to,
right now.
hold on.
Either CPI or 5%, whichever
I don't
is
think I
less.
read that in the ordinance. I thought it said P-TEL only.
Right, which is CPI
Right, is it
or
correct?
5%, whichever is less. That's what the law says.
Right, whichever is
That's what
less.
it says, Right. So if the CPI is 1.5, we'd be only going up to the 1.5.
We're trying not to do anything to raise your taxes. We're trying to just say, even though we're not home rule, we can raise them up to here, that's where we can raise them, that's what we like to stay. We like to stay within the home rule, non-home rule rules, but be home rule for other things to be able to tax on other things.
I get that full picture, but what I think that you're doing is, it is 1.5. And there is a catastrophe, and a future board needs to raise property taxes to 2.5 or 3.5. You're handcuffing them from doing it. They have to jump through hoops. They have to put home rule back on the ballot and start this whole turmoil. I honestly think that the bill should be as written in the Constitution, period. This is, I mean, why would this board handcuff a future board in the event that there is no other alternative but to raise the property tax above CPI, but not over 5?
Paul, what would we do in a catastrophe currently being non-home rule?
Layoffs?
So I mean, we're kind of handcuffed now. We're not, I don't think we're changing it.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that we spoke about the last meeting. We want to do streets, we want to do alleys, we want to fix things, but we're staying within non-home rule rates. We're not going to accomplish that. If we raise different things, I don't think we can raise enough revenue to do that also. And I understand what you're saying.
I mean, if
There's-
you raise property taxes on a referendum, 0.25, you're gonna raise, what, maybe $1.5 million a year?
7,000 homes times 0.25.
Yeah, I mean, you're raising a heck of a lot of money. Are you gonna raise that much money on the
That was my
the
biggest problem.
gambling and cigarette tax? I mean, unless you're gonna go to add another 1% home rule sales tax,
We're at,
where's your numbers? Where are you getting this money?
we're at 11% sales tax right now.
So, I mean, are you going, and the other question is, are you gonna be floating bonds and borrowing against this future money that you don't even know what it's gonna be to do the infrastructure? I mean, I don't think this has been thought out, personally, that's my opinion, but I think there's a lot of stuff in there that hasn't really been thought through clearly enough to make a decision. I understand you rushed it on to get it on the ballot, but,
We-
you know,
I don't think we really rushed it to get on the ballot. We've been speaking about it since October, November.
well, October, November, but it had to be done by the middle of December to get it on the ballot, so two months. And I mean, there's all these questions about how much money are you gonna raise? They use one example of, well, we could keep more money from the fines and tickets. Well, then that means setting up an adjudicated court, adjudicated law judge, clerk, record keeping.
We
What's
already
your
have
net
that.
gain? I mean,
We already have that.
you do?
Yeah, we have that for red light cameras, we have that for our regular tickets, we have that for our water bills. We do have adjudication hearings all the time. It's just, I understand your point, you know.
I
If you're
just
gonna
hope-
go to the residents for money, go for residents
Go
to
for
do
the
everything.
residents for the money. Lay out a clear, concise, comprehensive plan. I mean, just, we can hit $1,000 on a slot machine here and here. That, you're a long way from
Yeah.
a quarter point on the property tax. That gives you $1.5 million right away. And especially.
But the seniors are set they're at a fixed income. They can't afford a property tax hike.
Well, if they're a senior, their property taxes are frozen.
Froze.
Oh, and the other thing is $1.5 million isn't gonna cover much for us. And you'll see that coming into our capital plans.
Well, I'm just saying,
We're talking
on top of the
$5
rest of
to
the home
$10
rule.
million.
On top of the rest of the home rule package, now you've got some serious money. I mean, is it the intention of the board to put us in debt against some future tax revenue that you don't know what it's gonna be? Do you know how much you're gonna raise on a six-pack tax? Do you have any figures whatsoever to justify any of your moves? I don't think you do. I think this thing's been pushed through with no thought about any comprehensive plans whatsoever. What are we gonna tax? How are we gonna tax it? How much? And what do we get? None of that. And that's what some of the residents are upset about. No, we'll pass the bill, then we'll tell you what we're gonna do. It should be the other way around. You should be able to give us a comprehensive plan, what your intentions are, what your taxes are gonna be, to what items, creating how much revenue, and go from there. But the handcuff boards that may need to raise property taxes, even a half a point over CPI for an emergency is crazy too, to bring this all the way back to home rule vote. I mean, that ordinance is kind of crazy. I don't think this board would want to live under that.
Well, they currently are.
I mean, if they had, they had home rule, and a previous board had enacted this on them, and they came up to an emergency, I don't think they'd be very happy about it. I honestly don't think they would. That's why I say there's a lot of stuff that I don't think's been thought out.
We kind of sit in that predicament now. In an emergency, we're handcuffed. So we're already there.
I
think the
understand, but
intention
the whole
was-
idea is, now you're bringing it back to the taxpayers. You're bringing them back to another vote on home rule. Do you really want to do that? I mean, does a board really want to go back to the public and say, yeah, we're going to hit you for $200 a year on your property taxes extra, and for that, we're going to have to bring home rule back to the ballot? I don't think that that's right.
In bonding, I think we're still gonna have some restrictions there because our bonding capabilities are only gonna be so much. It's not like we can go out there and bond.
You can borrow in home rule, you can borrow against future sales tax.
Who's gonna
can
give
do
you the
whatever.
money? Who's gonna sell
Someone
you?
is.
Who's gonna sell those bonds? You know,
Someone
that's-
will. Towns are doing it. So that's why I just, there's a lot of discussion about the fact that there's no facts, no data, anything to support anything with this ordinance or home rule that you can give to the public. Thanks.
Well said, thank you. Anyone else?
Hey, I just had a quick question on that. So can you pass a referendum during home rule?
Name.
Ryan. My name's Ryan.
All right, Ryan. Just for the record, we
Yeah,
need to
sorry.
have that.
My
okay?
name's Ryan.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Can you can you go to referendum for something even though you're in home rule if you got into a position where you saw a need to raise money because of some sort of catastrophe or emergency? Could you take that to referendum anyway? Could you say, residents, we need this money, we're not gonna raise your property taxes, initiating a home rule because we used it responsibly, can we go to referendum to the residents and say, we're gonna ask you for it just like we would if we were non-home rule?
Please.
I apologize. I'm not sure I understood the question.
You could, essentially, if you were home rule or non-home rule, you can put a referendum out, yes?
You can put a referendum if you're home rule or not home rule. That's correct.
So if you were home rule and you were using it responsibly, but you didn't want to invoke the poison pill, so to speak, you could just go to referendum for a catastrophe or for a need for a certain particular cost and say, we're going to ask you for it. And if you shoot it down, then we're going to have to, as a village, we're going to have to swallow that pill that we asked you for it because of a particular reason, but you've chosen not to provide it.
But at the catastrophe time, by the time we get it on the ballot and get voted on, we might be long gone by that time. You know what I'm saying? It's tougher to do it at that time. You know, trust me, I would rather have done an infrastructure bill on streets and alleys and ask you to say, as the gentleman said, I'm gonna raise you $200 a year and we're gonna fix all your streets and alleys. I would have liked that one better, but again, the board has looked at it this way and some precautionary measures and stuff like that, that's fine too. I mean, I understand what you're saying. It's a tough, slippery slope, you know, and it's hard to go. We are strapped. We can't fix all the streets and alleys. We can't do a lot of things right now. We're looking for revenue sources. This is maybe one way. I'm not sure. Kind of torn a lot about which way to go.
Yeah, I think a lot of times the position I take is just to put it back on the residents to be more responsible. I think that just society in general has gotten away from being a village and more to just one for all for one. You know, it's like I kind of want to put it back on the residents just to understand that if we don't sometimes choose, I mean, if you looked at everybody's personal finances, I'm sure they wouldn't be all just, you know, roses and, you know, candy. So I just feel like it's sort of our responsibility as a village to decide whether or not we have a board that these powers are going to be utilized efficiently and correctly, but it's also your guys' responsibility to say, well, we're going to, if you want us to ask you for the money, we will, but you know, if you choose not to do it in the time of a need or that we have this need, do you see what I'm saying? Like
Are you saying, so if we said we wanted to do streets, go out for a referendum and say, hey, we want to do streets, even though we have that home rule authority, and we're not going to raise your property taxes.
Sure.
But in a sense, yeah, we want to
Can
raise,
we-
we want to raise the property taxes, but we're asking you to
Or
do
do it now.
this
Give
time.
the people what they want and do it now, and then let them see the repercussions of that. Do you see what I mean? Like people, I think they're just not thinking this through. It's not very well done, and that's not like a slam to you guys. This is a difficult thing. It really is a hugely difficult thing, but it's hard to. I've seen other villages in particular try to present this, and some have done it really well and still gotten shot down by the village in a vote. And you know, I don't know either way what that's going to look like in March, but March is going to come before the end of a lot of your terms. So, you know what I'm saying? If it were to pass, to the one gentleman's point, if it were to pass, the same board can enact the same ordinance of the poison pill because you're still going to be here, most of you. I mean, right? Your term isn't over after March 17th. So if the village decided to enact home rule, you're still going to be here to pass that ordinance. Same people. And from what I'm seem to be hearing is you all lean on the fact that you live here and that you want the best for the village, and just the fact that you would bring up the red light camera question, that was actually what I also wanted to come up and just make I wanted to kind of understand that more too, because the question is, why would we continue something that the state is deeming to be fraudulent or there's problems with, and then the other side of it is that hole needs to be filled within the revenue. So what I've never understood about red light cameras is if someone does something that they shouldn't do at an intersection and they get into an accident, they're most likely going to be, statistically probably going to be somebody who has consequences for that action. They get into an accident, they got in an accident, and they're going to have to suffer the consequences of that. Of course, there are hit and runs. I don't know how often that happens, but in terms of red light cameras, I think statistically it shows that they are revenue streams, and it would concern me to see us keep those although we need the hole filled, that's the difficult part, is that you do have revenue coming already from those. And I think that's the position a lot of villages in Illinois are gonna be under. But the question I would rather see us ask is, like you said, is it truly a safety issue? And would somebody who gets into an accident at an intersection not be held accountable for that? I mean, I've seen plenty of times where people, you know, have gotten in accidents and had, obviously, you have to be accountable for what you did. And sometimes that doesn't always go the way we want it to go, but I'm always concerned to see the government step in and try to say, like, well, we know best how to, you know, how to police that. And, you know, I mean, why not put one at every stop sign and just mail tickets to us? You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't seem like a very, it's never to me seemed like a very good way to actually create a safe environment, you know? Because we're gonna be held accountable if we run a red light or if we do something we shouldn't do. I don't know. I think that's all I had, actually.
Thank you. One more, oh yeah, please, come on.
The other thing is the announcement tonight for the town hall, Sunday. How are you going to notify senior citizens, people who aren't on Facebook, people who don't? How are you gonna make this open to the public on such short notice? I mean, you've known since December 22nd, home rule is on the ballot. There could have been 4 town halls, but we're gonna do it. Early voting starts March 2nd. You're doing it one day before early voting, and you have no way whatsoever to communicate this to the voters. You have no way. Everybody thinks Facebook and a website is the answer. Trust me, there's plenty of citizens in this town that don't know that. I have talked to many neighbors that don't even know what that was going on because they're not Facebook people, they're older. I think it's a disgrace that there's nothing in the papers about what this board does every month, why it's, what, December 22nd, here we are March, and there's still nothing in the paper saying that Westchester's going for home rule. I think it's a disgrace. It's a disservice to the citizens.
Anyone else? No one? Okay. No, we're gonna move into executive session, so motion to adjourn into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by trustee Calcagno, seconded by trustee Markey. All right, Stan, call the roll.
Trustee Calcagno.
Aye.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Morales.
Aye.
Trustee, President Gattuso.
All right, motion carries. All right, guys, give us about 5 minutes, we'll go into executive session. Good night, everybody. Thank you for your thoughts and everything. Well said. Good night.